Hello all, welcome to my channel. So today we're going to be doing a beginner's yoga class. I know a lot of people start off at yoga and there's a lot of terms that yoga teachers will throw out at you that get a little bit confusing and it's hard to follow because they're probably moving at a really more rapid pace than you need them to in order for you to get into your positionings. So this class is pretty much for you to learn and get comfortable in the poses, get comfortable in the sort of lingo that we use, and that way you can sort of enjoy that experience a little bit more. Obviously it might take like a few goes at it before you start to feel comfortable, and that's totally fine. You're in the safety of your own home. That's the beauty of doing sort of workouts online. So thank you so much for stopping by, and let's get started. So normally in a position in yoga, we will start with a breath. So depending on the teacher, you might be lying on your back, you might be sitting cross-legged, you might be in a child's pose. So today I'm going to start in a child's pose position. So what does that mean, child's pose? So you would have your feet together, knees pulled apart a little bit like so, and you're trying to keep your bum nice and low to the heels, and you start to walk the hands out and try to get your chest as low as you can towards the mat here. Forehead is coming down to the ground, and you're just going to sink into your body. And then you'll start to breathe deeply in through the nose. Exhaling out there and sink your hips just a little bit lower if possible. All right, some of you, if you're not so flexible, you might be up here, and that's totally fine. You can do this. You can bring your knees a little bit closer and then you have it back like this. So there's a lot of options to your child's pose. Do whatever is comfortable for your hips to sort of settle into that breath. All right, I've seen people even on blocks there like this, and they're just holding it still while they're just breathing and closing their eyes, because that's the most comfortable position. So you choose whatever works for you. And then we're just going to bring it up into a tabletop position. So a tabletop position is a 4-point kneel. You are coming forward, you bring your knees straight, they go underneath your hips. So wherever your hip line is, the knees right underneath it. Your hands are directly underneath your shoulders. So that hand there, shoulder is in one long line. And you are just bending your hands a little bit like so that the bottom part of your palms are sitting on the ground, so that it doesn't work into your wrist too much. And you are sucking in that belly so that you don't have to sort of drop into the shoulders too much there either. So lifting it through, and they'll go into generally a cat-cow. So cat-cow helps to warm up the spine. You draw the breath in through the nose, and you just simply relax the stomach. Drop it down. Maybe you tilt your head, but if you've got neck issues and you don't like to lift your head, you can just keep it straight. And then they'll ask you to exhale and go the other way. So you start to tuck your chin in, and you start to push your spine all the way up high to this roof, as much as your back will allow you to. This is your cat stretch. And then you deep breathe in again, and that will be your cow pose. Apparently we resemble a cow here. And then as you exhale, you curve up into your cat. Practice that one more time. Deep breath in. And then exhale out. And draw it back into the middle. So traditionally at this point, generally we might go into a downward dog. A downward dog is literally like stick your bum in the air, look like a mountain. So you tuck your toes under, you start to push your hips back, and you lift up high. Right, so depending on your flexibility, your knees might be bent like this, totally fine. Move your hands slightly more forward, and you can just hang here. But the problem with hanging here is you'll find it'll drop into your shoulders because your legs are not really activated. And then after a while, you might get tired, you might have to drop to the knees, shake out the wrist. For those of you who can actually extend the legs, you push the heels back and try to get your legs relatively straight. And then some of you might even be able to get your heels down to the ground. But because you're warming up, that might not be possible, because we'll generally have to, what we call, walk the dog, pedal the feet. One heel is straight into the ground or as close as you can get it, while the other leg lifts the heel and bends the knees, and then you swap over, right? You'll hear it a lot, walk the dog, pedal out the feet. This is what they're talking about. Good. And then you hold still. Now we're going to come forward. There's an option to go into plank, which is quite strong on your shoulders and your core. But I would, if you're a beginner, just drop to your knees and hold here, right? As you get more experience, you can tuck the toes, maybe try to hold the knees a little bit higher for a little bit longer. Otherwise, drop it down. Then we relax the feet behind you, and slowly you lower yourself onto your mat, where we start to warm up your lower back. Hands generally goes towards the chest, but if you're new and you're not quite comfortable, you move your hands forward and you might even place the elbows to the ground. So as they lift up, you lift the chest. You keep your head looking forward, and then you drop it down. And then you might try it again, and then drop it down. Good, let's go one more time. So this is what we call a baby cobra, baby up dog. These are the terminology that we might use. And then you come on down. Then bring the hands slightly back so you can push your body upwards. And you might pull back into a child's pose again, because your back has bent one way. You always want to bring it back into a neutral position here. And then you come on back to the hands and knees. You tuck the toes, you lift it back up into your downward dog, right, wherever you can get it. And then you start to move the feet closer, closer, closer towards the hands. The chin tucks in, and then you take your time. You start to roll it up to the spine. Your head will generally be the last part to lift to avoid that sort of dizzy feeling. Once you're here, start to turn to me. We're going to focus in on a little bit of balance, because there's always a little bit of balance in yoga. So if you keep your left foot on the ground, you're going to take your right foot up into a tree positioning. To start with, if your balance is a little bit off, or you're just starting to work on it, I would just lift the heel up onto the ankle, bring your hands into prayer. Because then you're just sort of lightly balancing on your toes and you don't have the whole leg, and you sort of have to put the weight into your left leg. Now, if that feels okay, I would take it up a little bit higher so that the foot now is completely off the ground. The trouble with this pose is, people's hips, if you are tight, you will want to bring your knee forward to me. Slowly over time, you want to open it, maybe a bit more at an angle, and then ultimately to the side. Hands pressing together, staring at a spot about 1 meter in front of you helps the focusing point. Feel free, for those of you who are a bit more comfortable, to maybe lift that leg a little bit higher, going above the knee. Just don't directly push onto your knee joint, because no one likes that. It's a bit of extra pressure that you don't need in your life. The toes on the ground is allowed a wiggle. And then slowly release it down. Good. Shaking at your standing leg, right? Because you want the blood flow to go back into it to relax it out. Now try on the other side. Right leg is holding. Coming into your tree. Left foot lifts up on your toes. Knee as much as you can swivels out to the side. Then lift it up a little bit higher if you so wish. Balance is really good just to clear the mind. Think about nothing. Because the more you think, the more likely you'll fall. Slightly above the knee if you want the challenge. Hands into prayer. few more breaths here. And then just gently start to release it down. Nice. All right, we're going to try a sort of an easier version of a warrior 3, which is also a balancing move. So if you shift your left leg forward, turn onto the side, your right leg goes behind you, toes just pointing on the ground. You're leaning into your standing leg. Again, your hands go back into prayer. And you're going to try to drop your front leg down a little bit. Your knee will stay over the toes. And we're going to start to lift the legs slightly off the ground. All right, if you're new to balance, 1 or 2 centimeters off the ground is totally fine. Standing leg maybe has a little bend. I'm just going to get you to straighten it slightly, if you can. The straighter it is, obviously the elongation of the leg we go. Now harder is to drop your chest and maybe starting to lift that leg a little bit higher if you want the challenge. Arms if you want to. I take it into aeroplane. So remember, when you start to move the arms, sometimes it loses its focus and you start to wobble. So no need to move the hands, but if possible, take it to the side and then holding it there. Good job. And then release it. And again, shake out that standing leg, twirl it around a little bit, and we start to face to the right. Right foot in front, left leg behind you, hands into prayer, drop into your front leg, and then we start to lift the leg a little bit off the ground. Standing leg now getting a little bit straighter. If possible, drop the chest. Lift the leg a little bit more. And then try to see if you can take the arms into an aeroplane shape. Sometimes I like having the arms out, you know, like those people that balance on those tight ropes. It helps you maybe with your balance, but I find when you start to move things around, it starts to throw you off your balance there. Amazing. All right, start to release it. You have just done some basic balancing moves in yoga. Also good to work on it, it's good for your brain. All right, the other thing is the squat that they always like to do in yoga. So your legs will be turned out a little bit. They'll be wider, about your shoulder width, depending how wide your shoulders are. Hands will go into prayer, and then we start to sit on down into a squat position. Now, if your knees are not quite good, you might go to here, or you might actually just rest your elbows onto the knees and lift your bum a little bit, which is totally fine, because you're just trying to build up that mobility in the hips. A lot of people, if you can, they can come all the way down, but don't stress if they don't, if you can't, right? Not if they don't, what a thing to say. All right, if you can't, you just stay up a little bit higher, especially if you got not so good knees today, or they're a little bit niggly, you just stay up a little bit higher and just drop your bum slightly. Now, those of you who can, you're coming all the way down. Sometimes you'll notice as you come down, people's heels want to lift off the ground, and that is a perfectly fine position to do. Over time, you're aiming to get the heels flat, but that is a journey, right? It takes a bit of time and consistency, and then you can get your heels to the ground, knees opening, and you're sitting up tall, and you're just having your hands into prayer because you want to open up the knees away from you to open up through that hip joint and lifting up through that chest. All right, this is what they call a Hindi squat, a yoga squat. You'll hear that in the terms of the class. Good. All right, let's bring the hands down. We're going to turn to the left. We're going to stretch out the hips. This is called a pigeon. So with the pigeon, you slide your left leg underneath you. You move your right leg back a little bit. The nicer version, I think, is sometimes to have that leg out, right? You come down onto the left hip and then you bring your right knee in. In Pilates, they call this the mermaid, right? This is just an alternative pigeon. In case your hips are a little bit stiff today, you have your back leg bent, your hands come in front, and then you start to drop the chest, if it suits you. You might feel like it's a bit too much to go down and put the pressure. You can stay up. No one's gonna question you on doing that. And then if you're feeling comfortable, then you start to sweep the leg straighter. You bend that bottom leg in towards you. All right, you make sure your hips are square to the ground. and then you start to drop it all the way down. This is called your pigeon. Some people call it swan, depending on the type of yoga, but this is what they're talking about. Now, those of you who are quite flexible, you might go, I can't quite feel anything. Feel free to lift your body out. If I push my foot out more, and then I square off my hips, then I feel a little bit more of a hip flexor and hip joint opener, and then you drop it down, right? Some of you might do this move and be like, I can't feel anything. This is how you adjust it and make it a little bit more advanced by moving that foot more forward to the top of your mat. Good, all right, come on up. Let's swap over to the other side. So bring that leg in and then turn to the right. All right, options, remember, mermaid is to have that leg bent out a little bit. Left leg in, other way straight behind you. Tuck that right leg underneath your body. Come on down. My flexible hipsters, you take that leg a little bit more sort of horizontal to the mat, and then start to drop it down at the body weight if you want to. Again, stay up if it's a little bit too much pressure on that hip today. Good. Come on up, and then we're just gonna face forward. You're gonna take your soles of the feet together. If you're quite tight in your inner thigh area, when you grasp this, it will look like this, right? Totally fine, let it be. Slowly over time, you'll get better, as long as you feel the stretch is totally what you're looking after. Right, soles of the feet will stay, hands will grip, and then you're going to use the knees to slowly, as you breathe out, always on the yoga breath, you breathe out, and that's when the extension comes through. So you breathe out and open the knees slowly, slowly. Your aim eventually is to get those knees towards the ground. That is just the direction, that is not where you need to be. And then to add more, you drop your body weight forward. Again, if your knees are up here, you're coming forward a little bit, or maybe you're not today. Let me just show you something that I see a lot in class. When people come down, because they were naturally sitting with rounded shoulders, they tend to do this. So they tuck their chin in and they start to stick up their back like a little hump, and then they come down like that. But because you sit all day that way, you want to first get long in the crown of your head, push the knees away, and then try to press your chest so that your back stays a bit flatter, helps open up your shoulders, and just sort of counters any sort of hunched position that you might do over time. Come on up, and let's stretch out the hamstrings, legs out straight, sitting on the fleshy part of your bum. Take a nice long deep breath in. This is for the back of the hamstring. As you exhale out, you just pop the hands somewhere along the leg and flatten your back and lean forward. All right, what's important here is to have the back of the thighs, back of the calves printing onto the ground, because you want to get the muscles long. The back of the knees are not touching. That's obviously fine, because that would be very high breast sensitive of you if you can do that. So you're going to try to keep the thighs and calves down. Don't worry if you don't get to the toes in the rest of the class, or you're feeling bad because the teacher on screen is touching their toes. It's just a journey to get there. So you grab on, you take a deep breath in, again, rise up from the crown of the head. You're pulling out the spine because the stretch is actually coming from your lower back and hamstring. Exhale out, drop it down, and just go a little bit further each time. Good, we're going to breathe in one more time. Exhale out, and slowly drop. release the hands, slowly, slowly roll up through the spine. All right, the last move here is a seated twist, right? We do this a lot in yoga. You generally do it at the end of the class, just before you're about to lie down. So you're gonna take your right leg, you're gonna cross it over the left. People with knee issues, tight hips, your left leg can stay completely straight. If you're okay to though, you start to bend the foot towards your body so that your bum is actually sitting on the heel. Then you put your right hand on the ground if your right leg is crossed. You turn your chest always towards your bent knee, so you're trying to get towards the leg. You take your opposite left arm and you hug that knee right into the chest. All right, so at this point you feel like your chest or somewhere along your stomach is touching that leg, then that is the right position. If you are going this way, you're twisting your spine, but you're just not going as deep as you can. So you are turning towards the bent leg, then your right hand will go behind you in the middle of the mat. You sit up tall, you make sure your right shoulder is open, and then you look over that shoulder, twisting it out in that spine. Good. And release it. So we swap over to the other side. Get your right leg nice and straight underneath you. Take your left leg, cross it over. So remember, the leg can be straight. If it's straight, it just looks like a twist this way. Otherwise, you bring your right leg towards you. Your bum will sit on the heel there. You're going to take your right arm, turn your body towards the bent leg, hug the knee right into the chest, sit up tall. Again, pull out through the crown of the head, and then take your left hand behind you, sit up a bit taller, and then as you exhale, look over your shoulder on the left and look to the back of the room. Great, and twist your body around, and then come just facing forward, and then at the end of the class, they will pop their hands generally together, and we say namaste, like a greeting, a thank you, a goodbye. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey of beginners yoga. Hopefully you've learned some terms and got a little bit confident with the moves. Keep practicing if you want a little bit more. If you want some other tutorials on yoga moves that we could possibly work on, feel free to leave some comments and like my page, follow me, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.